right, welcome to the Harmony Channel. I'm Jason Whitlock. Thank you for joining me. Joined today by Delano Squires and Shemeka Michelle. Guys, let's get right into it. Something, I don't know what you would call it, interesting happened on The View yesterday. They had a conversation about black people and Iran and gay people. I don't know. Let's play Whoopi Goldberg and the women of The View cackling back and forth at each other, and then we'll get both of you all's reaction and mine. Let's play the clip.
And it's slow.
But let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
I'm sorry, but where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Keep hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step foot during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year 2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit in Toronto.
I'm sorry.
Well, they look like Listen, I can't have my hair showing. I can't wear a skirt. I can't have my arms out.
I'm telling you,
I literally said it was up to the Iranian people.
Yes, it is up to them. And that's why I am saying that it is the same. Murdering someone for their difference is not good, whoever does it. It's not good. So that's why I said you weren't saying what I heard was not what you meant.
I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Guys, don't go to Tehran. Do not anyone at this table should go to Tehran.
Let me tell you about being in this country. This is the greatest country in the world. But, yeah, I know that. And we all know that. But every day, we are worried. Do we have to be worried about our kids? Are our kids going to get shot because they're running through somebody's neighborhood? They are not big deals, and I don't mean to say they're not big deals to you, because that's not what I meant.
And they are not doing well there either. They are not doing well in Iran. They are not educated. They cannot property. They cannot leave States.
I'm talking about here.
Nobody wants to diminish the very real problems we have in this country. That is no one's intent. But I think it's important we remember there are places much darker than this country and people who deserve rights.
Not everybody feels that way. Not everybody feels that way. Listen, I'm sorry. You know, when you think about the fact that we got the vote in 1965.
Okay, they don't have free and fair elections in Iran. It's not even the same universe.
They can't go out of their house. The women.
You know what? There's no way I can make you understand.
No, let me try something. It's like try to reverse roles with a black person in this country, let's say, because I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Just try to understand from their point of view. From that point of view, this country does not do them well. Does not go for them.
I completely acknowledge that.
And we shouldn't compare atrocities. If you're talking about Iran, of course, is doing worse things. But relatively speaking, it feels bad.
Okay, but I think you know that Iran is significantly
I guess we're going to come back and talk. We're going to come back and talk more about this.
And I know what happened.
So I'm going to ask you all, I'm going to pass the basketball back to you over and over again. I would just like for you to unpack things one at a time. And so my initial question is, and just stick to one and I'll circle back for your second, but your initial thought, what's your initial reaction to that conversation? What's your one takeaway, or what's your strongest or first thought listening to that conversation? Shemeka, you go first. Just off the rip, if you had to describe somebody what you just watched and what your reaction would be, what would be the first thought?
My initial thought, Jason, honestly, was I wish someone would hold Whoopi down and cut off her clitoris, because I thought her comparison was ridiculous. So that was my initial thought.
Delano, what was your initial thought?
My initial thought is that delusion is a stronghold. And oftentimes when you are too well fed for too long, you forget what actual hunger feels like. So when I listened to what Whoopi was saying, and at one point she's saying this is the greatest country in
Joining
the
me now,
world,
author and
and then
political
at the next point,
Michelle,
and the next,
Shemeka Michelle.
When God
Oh, I'm
made
hearing.
him not good for man to be alone, he gave him a computer.
What am I hearing? Shemeka, is that your, perhaps, what am I hearing? It looks like
Yeah, it
I'm
was
hearing
my
something and
Sorry.
yes, let's don't do that. Delano, did you finish your point?
yeah, I can stop there. I can stop there.
Got so my initial thought, and it's not my strongest, but was like, why is this on TV? Who's funding this? This is a level of delusion and a conversation so far removed from reality. Why is this on television, and why are corporations and advertisers supporting this? That was my initial thought. Your second thought, Shemeka, or response to anything me and Delano have said?
Jason, it just frustrates me because it is allowed to be on TV when it's so far-fetched and ridiculous. I don't, as a Black person, walk around every day feeling like I even compare to these women or people in these other countries. And Whoopi knows this, and she understands this, but yet she's allowed to push this type of rhetoric. Before we went on air, I was just telling Delano, once I remembered that it was Juneteenth, I remembered that a friend of mine made me this shirt some years ago. So I went to put it on simply because I'm in a liberal city, and I said to myself, I have a few errands to run after work. I'm going to just, maybe play on a little white guilt and see, because I feel so free. I feel so alive. I think it's so ridiculous that anybody would walk around just looking at white people saying they're afraid of them. I don't feel that way. And so for Whoopi to be able to push this narrative on national TV, ABC should be ashamed of themselves. And I felt really bad for the other lady who was actually trying to have a logical conversation with Whoopi, because it's at this point, I felt like she needed to be insulted. You're going to act silly and stupid. I'm going to give you exactly what you're asking for, because she wasn't even trying to hear this. And then Joy joining in saying, just try to trade places with a Black person. Okay, and what? I still have the freedom to wear what I want. We have equal rights here in this country. This is, in fact, the greatest country to be in. And Whoopi wouldn't even be sitting at this table anywhere else.
Delano, second thought, response to anything?
I think my second thought, it was interesting that Whoopi got Joy to be her Negro whisperer, because at some point she just got fed up and said, well, I can't explain it to him. Maybe you can try. And then Joy, even went, got more delusional and said, oh, try to imagine what it's like to be a Black person in this country. So it's just, I'm not surprised. I figured this is what The View does. I don't know who watches The View. I don't know anybody personally who watches The View. But I'm not surprised that this is how they speak. And I think the most disconcerting thing is that there are more people than Black folk who we would probably want to admit who are sympathetic to Whoopi's view. They may not go all the way and say, yeah, America is like Iran when it comes to the rights and freedoms of Black people. But it's one of these things where, again, when you've been full for so long, you don't even know what hunger really feels like. And I think when you've been free for so long, true oppression is something you just don't even know how to fathom.
Here would be my second and strongest takeaway, because I was like, wow, this is really stupid. Why is it on TV? What's happened here? And then so as I'm trying to figure that out, I go to, well, what is the agenda? Because no one believes what Whoopi's saying. This is a viral moment. This is something they're saying that they do consistently. Whoopi's an actor, actress, whatever, and she's just playing a role, and they want this clip to go viral. They want us to discuss it. What's the agenda behind that? I think, and I think it's a promotion of feminism, that this piece of viral content is being put out there to make you say, women not having full freedom to dress half nakedly, to do whatever they want, that's the worst form of oppression in the world. And Iran does that. These Middle Eastern countries actually do the worst form of oppression in the globe. And therefore, you know, we should look down upon them and we should not care what happens to them. Sounds very tinfoil hattish, sounds very conspiratorial, but that to me, no one's buying, in my view, authentically, Whoopi's argument. So what the part of that they will take away from is, man, it's terrible in Tehran. And you ladies out there, boy, oh boy, these Iranian people, these women have to cover their heads and they have to wear burqas or something similar to a burqa. These people in Iran are the worst people in the world. So if they get blown to smithereens, don't you care? Do I sound crazy and tinfoil hat? That to me is the only conceivable authentic message that have come from that conversation is, man, Iran and how they treat women, they deserve whatever's coming to them.
I don't know, Jason. And I think if we didn't have so many Black people here that worship skin color who actually would agree with Whoopi to actually be thinking, oh yeah, life is so bad, I could look to your point of view a little bit more, but I don't know if I would get that. And maybe because I'm human, maybe because I have a bit of empathy, although I'm told I'm cold-hearted a lot. I wouldn't think that I would just not care about them because of what the women have to deal with over there. I think it would make me care even more about what happens to them, finding out what any of them have to go through. I just think that Whoopi actually, wants to push that here in America, that it's so terrible here, and we actually do compare some sort of way being Black with what gays and women deal with over there. I think she really wants to push that because she knows there's so many Black people that will buy into it.
I think the target audience for The View is white women, and that's who I think they're mostly speaking to. But anyway, Delano, your thoughts on my nutty conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. One of your, if you want to call it nutty, it's certainly a Brazilian nut or something like that. Whatever. I don't see that for several reasons. Because if that's what they wanted to do, then I don't think Whoopi would have drawn any attention away from that argument. I also think that they would see the women of Iran as victims of oppression, and therefore, if you blow the country to smithereens, that those victims would end up being collateral damage. I think the other thing, I would be slightly more likely, again, it would still be tinfoil hattish, if we were talking about a different country, a majority white country, a country that's read as sort of European, then I think it's a lot easier to say we shouldn't have sympathy for these people when a bomb gets dropped on them. But I think because, again, these are one-dimensional people, they would read, they think Iran, they think Middle East, they think people of color, then it's like, okay, we should be sympathetic to them. But I really do, as Shemeka said, I mean, there's a lot of people who are delusional. And we've seen some of these cases throughout the years, Jason, when Brian Flores files a lawsuit against the NFL, and his argument is that the NFL is run like a plantation, right? When athletes constantly compare themselves to slaves, it's one of these things where it's just like, okay, we've lost all scale as it relates to some of these issues. And it's one, and I've thought about this more becoming a dad, and I'm sure Shemeka knows this as a mom. when women are going through labor or during that process, they'll give a woman a pain scale. And it's not just, oh, I'm hurting. It'll be on a scale of 1 to 10. And I think language has a similar dynamic, right? And inconvenience is not the same as an atrocity. But to people like Whoopi Goldberg, all of these things get flattened into one. So if you can find one incident in Mississippi of a Black person being mistreated, then that is representative of an entire country and Black oppression in the same way women are oppressed in Iran. I think that's the logic. And it's hard to make sense out of that nonsense.
So I don't want to belabor it too much, and I'm going to make two separate points hopefully here, but I connected this view deal with the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz debate and this whole regime change debate that we're having. Ted Cruz is basically, hey, we want to do a regime change. And again, people are trying to build up public approval for a regime change war in Iran. And if you can convince them, oh, it's so terrible over there. These women, they got to cover their heads. They can't dress half naked. They can't do OnlyFans. Are you kidding me? It's terrible over there. That's, again, where I go. But the second part I want to say is, and this is why I connected to Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, is we watched two skilled debaters, Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, go back at each other. And some of Ted Cruz's arguments I thought were illogical, and some of Tucker's arguments I felt were too laced with snark and condescension, and they weren't true representations of what they felt, but they're in a debate, and when you start trying to win a debate, you kind of spew off into some unfair tactics and whatever. And so I say all that to say, I don't think Whoopi Goldberg authentically believes what she said. I don't think the football coach, Brian Flores, I don't think he believes the NFL's run like a plantation. I don't think Black people think that the police were randomly killing Black men that were doing nothing and unarmed. They were executing debate tactics that have been proven to be effective. And so that I just don't buy what Whoopi's selling. It defies logic and reason. And I just think it's a tactic. It's a debate tactic. I saw it among two white male conservatives use debate tactics, very similar. And I just don't buy it. They're just trying to win the debate. So my question, Delano, I'll circle back to you. I just don't think Black people like Whoopi, who's taken on a Jewish last name for some extra privilege and work in Hollywood, everything she does is just about, hey, how can I advance myself? How can I become richer? How can I get... None of it's based in authenticity or sincere beliefs. I just don't think she believes what she's arguing there. And I don't believe the overwhelming majority of Black people think that we're incredibly oppressed here in America.
Well, when I go in my barbershop and I hear the guys talking and they say, man, Trump gonna do this and Trump gonna do that. And they are always hearkening back to the 1860s. I mean, this is what I experienced. And I go to barbershop in one of the wealthiest Black counties in America, in Prince George's County, that hasn't had a white county executive since the 1980s. And this is still how the guys talk. Now, it's impossible for me to say whether they actually believe it. I would have to pin them down in a private setting to understand whether they actually believe it. But it's something that is said fairly frequently. Now, I do agree with you, Jason, that this is a rhetorical strategy because people always want to up the ante. They want, again, writing an op-ed or speaking in a debate and say, yeah, this is a minor inconvenience, is not nearly as evocative as saying, this is an atrocity. So I get that strategy. And this is, to be fair, this is not just a leftist strategy. I remember during COVID when the Attorney General William Barr said that, some of the COVID protocols were the worst violations of, I think he might have said, and I'm maybe paraphrasing, that this is the worst violation of civil rights in American history or something to that effect. And I was just like, come on, let's be serious. So I do think that this is a debate strategy. You made an excellent point about the view that I think also applies to Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, which is these conversations should always be thought of in terms of their primary audience and their secondary and tertiary audiences. The primary audience for The View is the women who are in the studio. And we can say the secondary audience is more generally white liberal women who, watch the program at home. But then the tertiary audience, and it's probably the biggest audience, is everybody online. Because there will be many, many more millions of people who see the clips online than who watch the show real time. And in that sense, that means that every conversation is not just liable to be pulled in one direction because people are saying things they don't actually believe. It really means every conversation is a performance between however many people are involved in it. And in the same way, Tucker Carlson knows, if I give Ted Cruz a little snark, a little condescension, this clip will go a lot further than if I try to sit down and give him some scholarly, exposition on Iran and the history of the Middle East. So it's one of these things where it makes you as a consumer say, okay, how much of this, to your point, Jason, do I think they actually believe, and how much of this is performance art?
Shemeka, you got it, because I'm going to circle back to you, Delano, here in a quick second. Shemeka, you got a thought here about, do black people actually believe some of this oppression stuff that we spew?
Jason, I would like someone to make a note of you actually giving Black people the benefit of the doubt, because they say that you don't. And I know that you do, but they say you don't. And yes, I actually think they believe a lot of this oppression that they spew. And I'm not even thinking that Whoopi doesn't believe that, simply because I have come to believe that psychosis is a lot more rampant than we believe it is. The mental disorder characterized by the disconnection from reality. And I think so many people are disconnected from reality. And one of the symptoms is delusion. I see that so much. Inappropriate behavior, hallucinations. We see that a lot. So I definitely think with the victim mentality that I hear Black people spew daily, whether it's in person or online, I truly believe that they feel we are so oppressed here. And most of the time, they get online and type it on their $1,000 phones. So you can't get more delusional than that.
Delano, I'm going to land the plane here, but I just want to talk about, did you get to watch the Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson, or did you just see highlight clips?
I saw highlight clips.
Gotcha. And so here's what I'll say in defense of Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, is if you watch the entire thing, and it's 2 hours, it sounded like a telephone conversation, a private telephone conversation between two passionate people that are into politics. And so what you've seen are highlights where the conversation skids off the road and people say imprecise things and they get frustrated and they get snarky or they start talking about, it's like Tucker caught him with his pants down and he's like, yeah, in Genesis he didn't even know where in the Bible he was quoting, but he's like, where's that at in the Bible? That's the kind of thing that goes on in a private conversation between friends or respectful rivals. And I'm telling you, I watched that conversation the entire 2 hours. And I was like, this is one of the most authentic things I've ever heard. One of our 100 senators just got grilled for 2 hours by someone he respects, and he pushed back and went at Tucker and blah, blah. And when it was over, they may have some ill feelings towards each other, but they still had a respectful conversation. I authentically thought it was a good look for both of them. and there were points in there where I thought Ted Cruz, particularly as he talked about, we got to be subservient to Israel. And I'm taking him out of context. But subservient to Israel or whatever. I just thought he got caught with his pants down. But I'm just telling you, if you watch the whole thing, that's just a real conversation that two people, if me and you had a 2-hour conversation in private about BLM or I don't know, just Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. That there would be moments that would look like those viral clips, but if you watch the entire conversation, you'd be like, yeah, Jason and Delano disagree about 30% of Martin Luther King and respect each other. And man, they stuck in that conversation even when things got uncomfortable. Oh, those are two men that disagree on some things, but respect each other. I think that's the proper takeaway if you watch the whole thing.
And I don't doubt that, right? Because, a 2-hour conversation, you're going to have ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys. But again, some of the clips that I saw, it was fascinating to see how both men sort of came to their different conclusions and the things that motivate them. I was actually struck by Ted Cruz, and I don't talk about geopolitics because I'm not an expert and I don't feel pressure to have an opinion on every single thing. He was passionate. He was adamant when he said, when I ran for the Senate in Texas, I publicly committed to being, and I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't say serving the interests of Israel, but it was that sentiment. And I think it's right for a journalist to ask, is an American senator, should his primary focus be on representing the interests of any foreign country, even if it's an ally, even if it's Canada, it doesn't even matter. So I do think that the conversation was substantive. But again, once the cameras get rolling, it's like when you watch a reality television show, right? The show is following this couple to the grocery store. Do I think the couple actually goes to the grocery store? Sure. But do I think that people behave differently when they know a camera is rolling on them? Absolutely. And do I think that people who need for their content to be shared, to be discussed, do I think that they have an incentive to as my wife would say, zhuzh it up a little bit? Absolutely, I do, right? And I think that comes out in some of the discussion, but that doesn't mean that the discussion itself is inauthentic or that people are lying. It just means that we're human beings and we react to different incentives.
Ladies, gentlemen, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. We will see you next time. We'll play some Harmony. We'll see you tomorrow.
How did we end up so divided? Stop fighting and stand tall. We used to be a nation, one united. Now we're headed for downfall. God, let your light shine down. What we need more than anything now. Harmony. Let's make a simple vow. Let's come together now. Harmony. Put all your weapons down. Love one another now. Harmony. Time for us to wake up. Choose love, my sister, my brother.